Hey everyone, it's the host of All Across America, Marco Vig, jumping in for a few seconds before the show to thank y'all for listening, to let you know that I want to hear from you. Tell me what you like about the show, and send me your suggestions too. Follow us on Instagram at AllXAmerica, or visit the website, allacrossamerica.net, and you can use our contact page there. If you want to support us, we're on Patreon at patreon.com/allacrossamerica. Try to respond personally to everyone who reaches out, so say hello. All right, on with the show.
Podcasting from Portland East to Portland West, from Big Pine Key to Pacific Beach, and from San Juan to Guam, this is All Across America.
Thank you very much for joining me here, and I wanted to start off by asking the simplest of questions, the most basic of questions. Tell us about your name. Because I did a Google search, as everybody does, and there's a Sister Marie Paul Wilhelm who administers to the poor in New Mexico and who is in her 80s. And I said, that doesn't sound like the person that I'm going to be meeting, and that Sister Marie Paul Wilhelm sounds like an uncommon name, and there's not likely to be two people who were born with that name who just happen to be nuns. So maybe you could tell us a little bit about that to start.
Yes. So in religious life, we generally change our name.
Okay.
And so in my community, we change our name at vestition. So when we receive the habit, we change our name to a religious name. And everyone in my community has a Mary form in their name. So everyone is Mary or Marie or Maria or something of that sort.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And then we also choose a second name, well, most of us choose a second name for a second patron or devotional name. Okay. So Paul actually was kind of given to me by the Holy Spirit. I prayed to the Holy Spirit, which is actually more my thing. I have a devotion to the Holy Spirit. And asking, what should my name be? And Sister Marie Paul just kept coming up. So
okay.
Yeah, but Paul the Apostle, the writer of much of the New Testament. So
okay.
He's my patron.
So it must be somewhat confusing if there's so many different variations on Mary, Marie, Maria. And there's 19 women that live here, or
yes,
20?
There are 20 now.
20.
Yes.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. All right.
So it's hard to learn when you get here, but you pick it up. Right. You're with the same 20 people your entire life. You figure it out. The other confusing thing is we all look the same, so that makes it more challenging to learn people's names. Is because we all wear the same thing.
Right. Right. You can't tell people by their hair color or.
It's true, but we are very easy to get at because everyone goes by sister around here. So
all right,
someone's walking down the hall and you just say, "Hey, sister." And then that's one of my sisters actually had a story a couple weeks ago of she was in a parking garage and someone yelled out "sister," and her immediate thought was, "How does he know my name?" But it's of course not her name. But.
Well, my name is Mark, so when I hear a dog bark, sometimes I turn my head around, so I know exactly how that is. So maybe you could tell us your journey and how long you've been here and what brought you here. And I know we were talking, you're from the Texas Panhandle region originally. So tell us a little about that and kind of what brought you here on your journey.
So I grew up in Texas, and then I went to school at Texas A&M University.
Okay, home of the Aggies.
Yes, I'm an Aggie, very proud Aggie, class of 2015.
All right,
and I was studying electrical engineering at the time.
Wow. Okay.
And that was my plan in life. I wouldn't necessarily call it a dream because that's what I was going to do. I was good at
You're
it.
18 and
had to pick something. So my sophomore year of college, God really broke into my life. I was at a retreat, and He showed me that this plan I had for my life of just going and getting a career as an electrical engineer really wasn't what He had in mind, I guess. But I kind of did my best to ignore that because I had a path. I was perfectly happy on the path, and how do you even change direction at that point? Like that would be, He was inviting me to religious life, but that would mean, getting off of this particular journey that I was on and, going in a completely different direction. which was very difficult. So I ignored it for a couple years. But there came a time the summer before my senior year of college, I had a great internship, and I was well on my way to my dream, or like I said, not a dream, my plans. And it became really clear to me that was never going to be enough. That I could have another more responsibility, a bigger job, everything else life could offer, and it would just never be enough for me. I wanted something more than that, and I gave God a chance.
Wow.
So I started looking at religious life after that.
Wow.
But it was not a quick process for me.
And had you been you had been a practicing Catholic up to that point, and was it an every Sunday mass thing, or was it more? And when did it become? I guess you had mentioned your sophomore year.
Yeah, so I did grow up Catholic in a very a practicing Catholic family.
Okay.
We went to mass every Sunday my entire life, and I never lost that in college.
Okay.
But I wasn't always as pious as I am now, for sure.
Right.
But God, it was kind of slowly drawing, and it was actually that summer that I had that internship. I was in Albuquerque, so I was living completely by myself, and in my taste of freedom, God's grace is amazing. I turned more towards Him.
Okay.
And with that, I guess. So that's when I started going to daily mass, and I started really considering his ideas for me. And then when I went back to college, I finished my degree, because what else are you going to do?
Right.
I've got 1 year left. But I started a really discerning intentionally, which means I got a spiritual director, someone I would speak to on a monthly basis about the journey I was on. Start going to daily adoration and spending time with the Lord at church, every day, and dove in my faith even more, I guess.
Okay.
But at that point.
And what do you mean by daily adoration?
So I'm going to ask a question here. I should probably start with the Eucharist, I suppose.
Okay.
So as Catholics, we believe that Jesus is really, truly present in the Eucharist.
Okay.
The body and blood of Jesus
Okay.
comes during Mass. And so we have him in the tabernacle all the time. And so every Catholic church has Jesus' body and blood in the tabernacle. And some of times we expose the Eucharist for adoration throughout the day. So you are able to come in and just spend time with the Lord in the church. So we have that here as well, from first thing in the morning until in the evening. The Eucharist is exposed, so you can come and just sit and pray. So you can pray anywhere, but when you're praying in the actual physical presence of God, it's just that makes that encounter so much more intimate and awesome. So for daily adoration, I would go and sit in an adoration chapel. I would started small, 10 or 15 minutes a day. When I was a senior in college. And I really grew in my relationship with God through that.
So you graduated from college, and what was your next step from there? Did you ever work as an electrical engineer?
I did not.
Okay.
Yeah. When I graduated, I thought I would just go figure out religious life, and that would be that. Quite quick. But like I said, it was a long process. So I guess when I graduated, I still didn't have a plan for like a community to enter. Religious life is vast in the church. There's different options. There's active communities that actually go out and help people, like in the hospitals or serving the poor, that sort of thing, or contemplative life in monasteries where we're praying.
And that's the constitutional cloister versus a papal cloister. There's a lot of terminology.
There's a lot of terminology, yes. So constitutional versus papal is different kinds of monasteries. So we live in papal enclosure, which means we are the most enclosed. We don't have we have a wall around the enclosure, and we don't interact with with most people. I'm actually an extern, which complicates the matter, to throw in another word at you.
I see. Extern. Okay.
Which means I am a member of this cloistered contemplative community, but a few of us are not bound by enclosure in the same way, so that we can serve the community in the outside world. So that's why I'm the one sitting here talking to you.
Right.
Because I interact with the world more.
I see. Okay.
So.
And for folks listening in, we are talking. I guess it's almost like a counter that separates us. But you did come out and shake my hand, and I wasn't sure if that was.
So most of the nuns would not do that, but
they would not.
But
okay.
yeah, I'm able to come out and interact with the community because of my particular vocation within the monastery.
I see. Okay.
Yeah.
And had that always been okay if I do decide to go into a papal monastery that I would want to have that sort of extern role, or did you come into a papal monastery saying I don't know?
So I came here with the full intention of being a cloistered nun, like all the others. But it never quite sat right with me, I guess. I felt called to contemplative life in the giving God fully everything, no outside apostolate or outside work, study and prayer and being with him radically in that way. However, enclosure itself, I just never actually felt drawn to. So I came here for a live-in. I was here for a couple weeks.
Okay.
And that's in that process when I was kind of having a bit of a panic attack when I was here. And the walls were closing in, and I was like, God, I can't do this. And he showed me and invited me, extern. This community is a beautiful community. I want to be here with, these are my sisters, but to serve them in this way. And so it's a different vocation. It's a vocation in itself, in that I am here in service to enclosure in a different way than the cloistered nuns are here, most directly to God. Okay.
And just getting back to, so you graduated college, maybe you could take us through the time when you graduated college till you did your live-in here with the Dominican nuns in Summit.
Yes. So I graduated college. I didn't really have a plan because, as I said, we got off track here. Religious life is very vast. So I hadn't, found a community yet at that point. So I actually did mission work for a summer. So I worked for an organization that leads mission trips around the country for high school youth groups.
Okay.
And it was incredible. We would go, travel around the country, working with groups for a week at a time.
Okay.
So a group would come in, we had never met them before. We were new to this place also. It was absolutely nuts, working all day. We were doing mission work, building houses or that sort of thing. In the evenings, we were essentially kind of doing retreat kind of things. We would give a talk, have some prayer time, praise and worship, that sort of thing. And then plan for the next day. It was craziness, but it was awesome. I loved it.
Yeah.
So after that experience, I thought I was supposed to be, an active religious because I loved mission work so much.
Great.
So I moved home and decided to look into active life. I very intentionally did some discernment that year, meaning I visited different communities. So I visited all around the country, some sisters that are teaching sisters, some that work in parishes, that sort of thing.
So almost like a college tour.
A little bit. Yes. Yep. And at the end of that, I was at like my 5th visit within a year. Not everyone discerns this way, but this was my process. I was sitting there again in adoration, just kind of face to face with Jesus, and said, Lord, I'm tired. I'm tired of looking.
Yeah.
I've been searching all year and nothing is quite right. But I'm also tired of feeling like I have to exhaust myself for you every day. As much as I love mission work and I love these other jobs that I was doing at the time, I just feel like, I don't want to have to be, completely wearing myself out every day to feel like I'm fulfilling his will.
Okay.
And so he actually invited me. He said, rest. during that prayer time. And that was the seed of contemplative life.
Okay.
But I was not ready for that because, man, living in a monastery is scary. Like, it's different, and I didn't think I could do it. So I kind of avoided that, and I said, well, that's nice, God. Moving on to something else. And I was a youth minister in New Mexico for 4 years.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So I got a job there in the parish, full-time youth ministry.
Where in New Mexico?
Los Alamos, New Mexico.
Okay, great.
It was beautiful and up in the mountains.
Yeah.
And, God really gave me a great blessing before leading me to the monastery. Love the mountains. But yeah, so it was awesome. And again, it was incredible. I loved the work, hang out with high school kids. And I always had this incredible opportunity that I was actually right next door to the public high school. The kids would actually park in my parking lot to go to school.
Okay.
So I had high school kids in my building almost every day. And it was just a really amazing experience of hanging out with them and just, sharing life with them. And it was great. But I knew it was temporary because there was still in the back of my mind this religious life.
For
God
those
was calling me.
4 years, although
Yeah.
you enjoyed it, you still knew that there was something.
Exactly.
Okay.
God was calling me to something else. So about 2 years into that, I was again in adoration. It's a good thing we cleared that up earlier, what adoration is. And chatting with God and said, I'm loving what I'm doing here, and this is awesome, but there's no Christianity without a cross, and I want to give more, essentially. This is fantastic, but there's got to be something more, even than this. And once again, he brought up the contemplative life. There's that invitation kind of sitting there. And, I sobbed sitting on the floor of an auditorium with my students around because I was at a youth conference at the time, chaperoning. But that was really the moment that I was like, okay, well, I guess I really have to do this. He's really asking me to enter a monastery.
Wow.
And I'm really not going to be happy anywhere else. So I texted one of my spiritual mentors and I said, I have to look into contemplative life, but I don't even know how to start. They're nuns, they don't answer the phone. And she was like, well, they do actually. So Here's your list.
Right.
And so she gave me a good list of folks to look into. And I visited a few of those communities. And then at the end of that time of visiting a few more monasteries, I remembered, oddly enough, after all of that I really liked Dominican spirituality. So within religious life, there are many different ways of living.
And orders,
religious life.
is that the proper term? Okay.
Yes, different orders, different charisms or spiritualities
I
that
see.
go with
Okay.
each order as well. So you have, I visited Benedictines, Poor Clares, Passionists. There's also Carmelites. That's
Yes.
a big, and then so many more that I can't mention. But everyone follows Jesus in a slightly different way, I suppose. So, as Dominicans, we follow our founder, Saint Dominic, from the 1200s. He is the order of preachers, so he's all about zeal for souls and going out and saving souls. He was fighting against the heretics, and brought up this order in a very direct attempt to fight heresy at the time. So we're into preaching, and we're also into study, and so truth, and the value, contemplating truth and sharing the fruit of our contemplation. So these ideas of truth and really sharing the faith and zeal for souls drew me to Dominican life. So after all of that search, I was like, I need to look into a Dominican monastery, actually.
Wow.
So I found this one on the internet, and the process of entering a monastery takes time. Came for a first visit for a couple days, and then you said, yes, I guess I need to look into this a bit more. So come in for a live-in for a couple weeks.
Okay.
And
Before making, it was almost, even when you decided that you liked the Dominican order, it was a 3-step. You come for a couple days, then you come for a couple weeks, and then you move in.
Yes, exactly.
Wow.
Yep. And there's many Dominican monasteries in the country. So it's even then every community kind of has its own personality, has its own thing.
Of course.
So you have to hone down which one exactly. But
Right.
yeah.
And may I ask, what did your family think? Were they supportive through this whole process? It sounds like it was you really spent a lot of time thinking about, and it certainly wasn't something that you jumped into in any way. And had they seen that, and what were their thoughts?
Yeah, I'm very blessed in that my family is very supportive, and
That's
you know,
great.
I have a family that is a practicing Catholic family,
Right,
and you know,
okay.
so they at least understand a little bit what I'm doing. No one understands completely.
Sure.
Monastic life is very strange, but they're very supportive, and it was such a tremendous gift that they gave me, I guess, to allow me to take this step, and they never asked me not to. You know,
Okay.
My family is still in Texas. I am now in New Jersey. They're not excited about that fact.
Right, and that's the hardest
not
part.
ideal.
Yeah, you could be in monastic life or not. You'd
Yeah.
still be, you
Yeah.
know, thousands of miles away.
Exactly. So, you know, maybe not how they would have written the story, not how I would have written the story, but always trusting in God, and they're supportive in that. But definitely they never, even though I just finished my degree in electrical engineering, they never said, "Hey, what about that degree?"
Right.
Because, and I remember this having a conversation with my dad when I was first starting the discernment process. I just telling them, "Okay, I'm going to go back to school, but I'm not going to look for a job," and that's life changing.
Right.
Like,
I mean,
what are you doing here?
Right. I mean, it wasn't like you were loafing at home playing video games all day
Yeah.
either. But,
Yeah, but I'm going to go and finish my degree, but I will not be searching for a job this fall.
Yeah.
But I had a conversation with my dad at some point in that year that he said, I'm not shocked because I knew you were searching.
Okay.
And so they had that, they could see that in me,
Yeah.
that I wasn't satisfied. I was still looking for something else. There's got to
Okay.
be something else out there
Yeah.
that actually fits me better, or that I'm supposed to be doing. So,
Which is great
good.
because a lot of folks go through their whole lives not, still searching.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a lot of folks, myself, a lot of folks post-college are in that, not everybody lives that linear, I'm going to be an accountant and I'm going to get my CPA and I'm going to be an accountant. That's, very few people live linear. And I mean, it's very clear to me, you more than probably anybody I've ever met or know exactly, where you wanted to be, and you're there.
Yes, like I said, it's not the story I would have written.
Right.
I can remember times when I was in college, particularly when I was kind of reaching towards the end of my senior year, and I still had no plan at all.
Yeah.
And I had this moment of anger with God, and I was like, God, why couldn't you just, let me be normal? Let me just get a job like everyone else.
Right.
And I could, and I had this real sense of, I say all of these things like God said this and God said that. He didn't. It's not a voice. It's something. You get a sense, a feeling of God just like laughing at me and saying, "Since when did you want to be normal?"
I like that. Okay.
Your entire life, you've been striving for something else, something bigger, something different. And so I was like, "You're right. You're right.
Okay.
Like there's something." I guess I need to embrace this call to differentness.
Okay.
And it led me into the monastery. But I was, again, very blessed in that God led me the whole way. So it's not
Okay.
like I was having to scramble in the darkness. It felt like darkness at the time, but He's always got the, He's got the pen. He's writing the story.
Right.
He's got the thread. And as much of a struggle as that is, you have to sit back and kind of trust that, there's a bigger ideas going on here, and I just get to embrace it, which is awesome. Right. Yeah, accept the invitation.
So you had a normal upbringing, it sounds like, and again, you went to 4-year college and grew up in the kind of TikTok, Instagram world, and maybe it makes even more sense today that somebody would want to enter the life that you're living. But for a lot of people, some might say it sounds a bit extreme. What are your thoughts on that? And would you agree in certain ways? And
yeah, it is extreme. It is, and you have to when you're in here, you have to sit back and realize that every once in a while, because when I'm in here, in the enclosure, it's just life.
Right.
We just get up when the bell rings, and you go pray, and we do our daily work, and And it feels like the most natural thing in the world because this is, you know, what we're supposed to be. But I had this moment when, a while back, we watch movies once a month here.
Okay.
Yeah, you know, very appropriate movies. They're all screened.
Sister Act.
We watched In This House of Breed last week.
Okay.
But
great.
we watched Star Wars a few months ago. So, you know, it's a big variety.
My 6-year-old loves
But-
Star Wars, so I've done a lot of Star Wars watching lately.
Yes. But there was a movie we were watching, and a song came on, The Gambler, which, of course, I know. I'm from Texas. Apparently not everybody knows that song. But The Gambler came on, and to me, that's a really old song, right? And I was kind of sitting there singing along to it, and one of my other sisters kind of looked at me and said, "Oh, you know that song?" And I was like, "Of course I know that song. It's The Gambler, you know?" And she said, "When did it come out?" I was like, "I don't know, maybe the 80s." And she was like, "I was already in the monastery."
Wow.
And that really hit me that day of she has been in the monastery for 50 years, and it's serious. You know,
Yeah.
she has watched the 80s and the 90s and the 2000s just go by through a window, essentially.
Yeah.
You know, through the grill in our chapel.
Okay.
And it's awesome when you realize that, no, this is the real deal. Like,
Yeah.
you know, people are really doing that. And the joy that my sisters have that have been here 50 years, and we have one here now who's been here 70 years.
Wow.
You know, and yeah, just the intense joy and, you know, no regret. You know, they don't wish that they
Wow.
had spent the last 50 years elsewhere. You
Right,
know, never
okay.
crosses their mind. You know, it's, so yeah, it's extreme, but
Wow.
but it's cool. And to do that now, as those of us still entering the monastery, it's the yearning actually for the reality that you find here.
Okay.
You know, there's in the digital world and in social media, it's just all so. I don't even know how
There's
to
just
describe
too
it.
much and
It's too much. It's overwhelming. It's loud.
yeah.
And you can't hear, you know, as you mentioned yourself, you know, the real in-person conversation. And of course, you know, we come here for Jesus, but there's just so many perks. Like, you know, we live real life in here. You know, we sit down and eat with our sisters, you know, every day. And we have real conversations with them, and we still clean our own bathrooms
Right.
and sweep our own floors. And we, you know, our study time, you know, we study scripture, and we study, you know, Thomas Aquinas, but we also, you know, study history, and we learn languages. And it's just the fullness of life. It's, you know, contradictory to what most people think, but the fullness of life that you can get here is just, there's truth, there's reality, and away from all the distractions.
I've heard it. Discipline equals freedom.
Absolutely.
And it sounds like it is in that respect. And maybe you could talk a little bit more about that joy. And I mean, to me, it's like you have the best of both worlds in that you have this intense, you know, solitude, but you also have this great, we'll call it sisterhood of camaraderie of you know, these other 19 women that are around you. Could you talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah, that's actually one of the, I don't know, deep mysteries of monastic life, I guess. And that's also, so again, with the different spiritualities, everyone kind of embraces that aspect a little bit differently. So I'm speaking as a Dominican in that, you know, we follow the rule of St. Augustine that has been specifically made to work for Dominicans and through our constitutions. But the rule of St. Augustine begins with, you have come here to live harmoniously as a community with one heart and mind toward God. So he views community life as, you know, the goal. This is how we serve God, actually, is through community. So building healthy community.
Okay.
Where other monastic communities might have a more, you might be more hermits that live together for, you know, the sake of necessity, or even, you know, we eat, or we have the same monastery. That's maybe a little extreme, but, you know, less community minded. But as Dominicans, we're very community minded.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah. So yeah, we have community, and it's really fantastic, and it's just like a family in that I didn't choose these people, and
Right.
you know, you don't necessarily get along with all of them equally well,
Of course.
but we're all here for the same reason, which is a very cool thing.
Yeah,
You know,
that
we're
really
here
is.
again toward God, growing in virtue, and like we're intentionally becoming saints is the goal, of course, right? You know,
Right.
so it's cool to be with other people, with sisters that are striving to love God and love each other, and we have so much joy flows from that, and you know, we have our party days, of course, are rather normal days for other people. Since we spend most of our time in silence, we eat meals in silence while we're listening to a lecture or something, or a podcast.
Okay.
And we work in silence. We have 2 recreation periods a day that we talk freely. But then our biggest party days, our community days, you know, we come together throughout the day, and we just sit around and chat, and you know, we have a good time. We play music together.
Wow. Okay.
Or we play board games, that sort of thing. We're big into pickleball. We have a nice pickleball court.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Out back, painted.
Could you walk us through a typical day? I mean, I guess every day is fairly similar and prescribed.
Very similar, yes. So we live by the bell,
Okay.
time-wise. So we wake up at 5:20 most mornings. We sleep in on Sundays, 5:35.
Oh,
Big
wow.
deal.
All
I know.
right.
Yeah. So we wake up 5:20 in the morning, and throughout the day is split up by prayer times. So we start the morning with office of reading. So community prayer for us means all in, you know, chapel together, reciting psalms, listening to readings. I should say chanting psalms. We chant all of our office. But hymns, psalms, readings, intercessions, that's our time to also, we're always praying for the church, but more explicitly, you know, we bring intentions to the Lord, the entire world, not just the church. So that happens actually 7 times a day for the full office in a monastery now. So at different lengths. First thing in the morning, it's takes about 45 minutes, and then 3 times throughout the day, we come in for about 10 or 15 minutes for a shorter office, and then the big ones are morning and evening. So that's what kind of shapes our day, gives structure to our day, is we come into choir and pray as a community together. And then we spend about 2.5 hours in the morning and about an hour and a half in the evening, or afternoon, for work. And so work for us is a lot of what you might think of as normal housework. You know, we all live in the monastery.
Right.
We don't leave the monastery for work. So cooking and cleaning, you know, dishes, normal housework, like someone is in charge of the money.
Okay.
Someone's in charge of other vocations, you know, bringing other young women in. The novitiate makes soap and like skin products.
Okay.
And some sisters make candles, so we have that as work as
Novitiate?
well.
What can you?
So when you enter a monastery, you are in the novitiate, which means you are still in very intentional formation. So it's a long process of becoming a full adult nun, I guess you could say. So kind of the kid nuns of the novitiate.
Okay.
We lots of different different steps along the process.
Okay.
And you're really in a separate part of the building even, and you have a different direct superior for the very specific part of helping you work into the life slowly, because it is so incredibly different, as you pointed out, you know, and you're entering in an entire different life, entire different way of living.
Yeah.
You know, we walk a certain way, we talk a certain way, you know, you work a certain way, and all of these things, you know, not that what you were doing before was necessarily bad, but it's just not the way we perhaps do things now. And so there's lots of formation that happens, lots of corrections to be made, but you're actually a little bit protected in the novitiate because your novice mistress is the one always leading that direction. So you don't have 18 nuns telling you what to do all the time.
Right.
When you just come in, you have one nun that is able to break it to you nicely that now you need to start doing this differently. So that's the novitiate. And so everyone has their different jobs. So we we spend a few, like I said, some time in the morning, some time in the afternoon for work. We have, our noon meal is the main meal, and then smaller meal in the evening. And as I mentioned, we eat in silence most days while we're eating and listening to some lecture. And the idea is, while you're feeding your body, you're feeding your mind and your soul as well.
I like that.
Yeah, and then in the evening, we have study. Again, as Dominican, study is a really big part of our lives. So I have classes right now still being in the novitiate. But all nuns, you have study your entire life here. So, you have your own interests at some point, philosophy, languages, scripture studies, that sort of thing. And then we have recreation in the afternoon and in the evening. So 45 minutes at a time, we can just talk freely.
Okay.
And do whatever we want.
Pickleball.
Within limits, of course. Play pickleball, yes. So we do a lot of sitting around and chatting because we're 20 women, and
yeah,
that's what we do. So, yeah. But always, again, structured by the prayer, coming back to that and reminding us that's what we're here for. And the silence is for the sake of prayer and contemplation, maybe taking a line from a prayer in the morning, and, really thinking through it or praying through it or praying the rosary more. I just forgot about the most important part of the day. We have Mass first in the morning as well. So every day, Mass, and our whole day flows towards that and kind of comes away from that. So, we're going towards Mass in the morning, and then we receive the Lord there and really contemplate Him, the contemplative life throughout the day. And, that's...
And so maybe you could talk more about the novitiate and the process and how long you've been here and how long it takes to become a full nun. And again, forgive me if I'm getting the terminology wrong.
Full adult nun. Yes. So when you enter, you are a postulant. Postulant, saying, I really think that I belong here, but I have no real proof, so I'm postulating. And so you're doing that a year, and you actually look different even at that point. You're not a full member of the community yet. So you wear this nice blue jumper that is kind of designed to make you want the habit.
I see. Okay, right.
And yeah, a different veil and everything. And you keep your real name for that first year.
Okay.
And then after a year, you become a novice, properly speaking. And so you get the habit, but you're wearing a white veil, so you can still kind of be picked out in a crowd as you're new here.
And you are wearing a black veil.
Correct.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
So we have a 2-year novitiate, or 2-year time as a novice.
Okay.
And again, that's just furthering your formation. After those first 3 years, you take temporary profession. And so as religious, we make vows to live this way of life, and every community again has a kind of a different way of understanding that. As Dominicans, we profess our life and vow to be obedient to our superiors. So that is our profession. So that's my commitment to live the fullness of the life that we do here. So it's not just obedience to my superior doesn't just mean, I go I clean this hallway because I'm told to clean this hallway. It's also, I'm committing to the whole way of life. I'm committing to really striving to love the Lord and my sisters as well as I can. So that's profession. You make temporary profession for 3 years at first, and then a couple more years temporarily after that, until you are ready to be finally or solemnly professed. And at that point, then you're here for life. You make your final profession.
Okay.
And you're here forever. I just made temporary profession a couple months ago, so I went from being a white veil novice to a black veil novice.
Wow.
But I'm still in the novitiate for a couple years of more formation until I actually integrate into the professed community.
So 2 more years and what would you be referred to at that point?
A professed nun.
Okay.
Yeah, at that point, integrated, I guess, is the terminology we use when you are still temporarily professed but living in the professed community as an adult nun.
Okay.
Kind of a teenage nun
right.
at that point.
And you said your superiors, are you talking about God, or are you talking about within? Is there a hierarchy here in a way, or once you're professed nun, is everybody the same? How does that work?
So we have a prioress here,
Okay.
and so Dominicans actually live a representative democracy in some sense,
Wow.
which
Okay.
again it's a Dominican thing. Not every religious order has that. Some have abbesses and abbots that are more have a mother or father role. For
I
us,
see.
we have a prioress, so that is voted on, elected, and with 3-year terms.
Wow.
So, as Dominicans, we are all, adult, responsible. Man, I shouldn't have said that. All religious are, but we are all take an equal part in the running of things, and we're very big on pulling your weight and being responsible for the community as a whole, and we're all coming here together and supporting the common good. But in any group of 20 people, one person just has to step up and make the decision sometimes.
I agree with that.
So that's essentially the role of the prioress.
Okay.
When we look to her to make the decision, and she is the first among equals.
Okay.
And so we're all sisters. The prioress is the one that leads the prayers and leads the meetings and the discussions, and the one who actually gives us permissions for things. So I when I talk to my family, I call my family once every 6 weeks, and I go through my superior to say, can I call my family this week? And so any permissions that you need, you go to them, and they say yes or no, that sort of thing. And then we also have a council within that, or within the larger community, we have 5 sisters on the council that are kind of the smaller group of the voting body. And then, but as Dominican nuns, once you are finally or solemnly professed, you are a full member of chapter, which means you vote on all of the big decisions in the community. So it's and the chapter has to come together and decide and work together again for the common good. So it's not just one superior deciding everything and telling us what to do.
I see. So there are 20 nuns here. How many are currently professed?
So we have 1 postulant and 1 novice, and then we have 3 of us in temporary vows.
Okay.
So I guess 15.
15.
That are.
So you currently don't have voting rights?
I do not.
Okay.
No.
All right.
No. I can sit in on the meetings now, which is a big step.
Yeah, yeah.
but no voice. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, which is a blessing that I trust my community, and I know that they've got the good in mind. But
Right. And so you all are some of the sisters make soap and fragrances, and you all have a lovely gift shop, and it is also a very welcoming place in that there are people walking around the grounds, and the chapel here is open from 7 in the morning until 9 at night some nights on Wednesdays and Thursdays. Can you talk a little bit more about that? And
yeah, so that's one of the great things about being nuns here, is that we have adoration all day, every day. And the nuns are always in choir praying the Rosary, actually. So we have a perpetual Rosary adoration tradition here at this monastery, which means we always have adoration covered. We try, as Catholics, we try to not ever leave Jesus alone while he's exposed in the monstrance. But the nuns are there all day, every day, which means anyone can come in at any time, and you don't have to, keep your hour or make sure that someone else is here before you leave. So yeah, everyone is welcome to come in. During the summer, our chapel is not currently air conditioned.
Okay.
So during the summer, the doors are thrown wide open.
Oh wow, okay.
Even, so you can see right in. And we are on the other side of the wall, so we don't actually see most of the in and out of people.
Okay.
But yeah, it's great. It's awesome to be able to look out when you're in your Rosary time, and there's usually several people out in chapel,
Right.
which is really cool to see. And yeah, this area that we're sitting here, this half of the building was just opened in 2019, so it's new and fresh, and the nice gift shop. And so people are welcome to come in and stop by. And prayer requests, we're here praying for the world, and so we'd love to hear prayer requests. People can stop in and tell us, or just submit them over the internet, and we post them up on the board, and we always
And y'all have a really, really good website as well.
We do. Yes. Yep. Yeah, which helps vocations. That also, helps people know what we're doing in here. That's it.
And I also looked at, believe it or not, there's a cloisteredlife.com website, which is fantastic. And it shows all the different monasteries throughout the country, of which there are many.
Yeah.
There are many. And one of the questions I wanted to ask you was that most people are familiar with sisters that, maybe more the constitutional orders, those that are out serving the poor, serving the community. Whereas the contemplative is not necessarily serving the community, but maybe serving God. Could you talk a little bit about that and why some people choose one path over the other?
Mm-hmm. So why we end up in one or the other is the call.
Yeah.
What God's plan for us is, in theory.
Okay.
We try to find that. So as contemplatives, we do not have an outside apostolate. We don't, means we don't work elsewhere, directly serving people, but we have a strong belief in, the primacy of grace, and our sacrifice to God of our lives. When we come in here, we trust that God is pouring that out into the world. So we talk about particularly cloistered contemplative life as a total holocaust. Holocaust meaning, sacrifice, complete sacrifice to God.
Wow.
And so our coming in here and our giving up everything that we gave up in the world, so that's part of it, giving up careers and family, and, our own family, our parents, and hanging out with them, and just the physical freedom even, or, going places. All of that we offer up to God. And so it wouldn't be contemplative life if we were just here kind of hanging out with a fun group of sisters. It's not just leaving the world. It's certainly not fleeing from the world, or lack of other options. But we come here all directed to God, and we offer that to Him, kind of unite it to Jesus' sacrifice on the cross, with the faith that God will take that, accept that, and give grace to the world accordingly. So we are not actively serving with our hands, but it's fantastic that some people do who have that vocation. But for us, we are supporting them. We're kind of the powerhouse, the energy source behind.
I like that.
Behind the work, particularly as Dominicans. So we have Dominican family has cloistered contemplative nuns, and then preaching friars. So we, support the other half of our family, Dominican family, with our prayer. And St. Dominic actually founded, the order of preachers. So some people ask, well, how are you preaching? But St. Dominic knew that prayer was so important. He actually founded the nuns first. So, we are here supporting what is going on out there. And through our prayer and our sacrifice, enabling all the great work that active religious are doing out there. So
you had mentioned one of the sisters had been here since the 1980s. Do you see yourself 50 years from now and some song will come on the radio or a movie that you're watching and you'll have no idea because you're not that far removed from, college, just a few years. Mm-hmm. Do you see yourself living out your days here, and may you live a very long and peaceful and, happy life?
Yes, I suppose. I don't look for I don't look into the future that often,
Okay.
because like I said, I've been here 3 years, and even thinking about being in this building for the rest of my life, you sit down and think about it for too long, it gets a little bit scary.
It could, of course, yeah.
But one step at a time, one morning, there's never been a day that I couldn't do what I was
Right.
asked to do. There's never been a day that I needed to just like, get me out of here. I've had enough. And when you have that day, up until you make final profession, it's still a discernment. You kind of have that option, you know. So roughly half of the people that enter, don't stay a year even. They come and they say, this isn't for me, and they move on, which is great. It's great
for
that
both sides.
Exactly. When I was entering, my mom asked the novice mistress at the time, what happens if she comes here and she decides she wants to come home? And the novice mistress said, well, buy her a plane ticket. If she doesn't want to be here, we don't want her here.
Right.
Anyways, so if at any point in formation you decide it's not for you, then you leave. It's a little bit different. I'm in temporary vows, so I've decided to be here for 3 years. But at the end of those 3 years, if I decide it's not for me, I go home. But it's one day at a time. But in the grand scheme of things, to answer your question, yes, I do intend to be here for 50 years.
Wow.
Yeah, forever. And so, even a couple years from now, I'm sure there will be a song that comes on. I'm just like, I've never heard that before. And the chances are I will probably have the thoughts of like, thank God that I'm not there.
You're like, I'm not missing
anything.
anything.
I'm not missing much. And people come here and I still ask them, as an extern, I do actually try to keep up with a few things. I read the news more than some nuns do.
Okay.
And, I'll ask people when they come, is there any new like social media thing that we need to be a part of? Do we need to get on this? Or is like, what's going on in the world that I've missed? And they're always like, in the grand scheme of like, we're living for something else here, and so it's another song, it's another movie.
It is. It really
and
is.
There's nothing huge. There's of course things that I do miss, family, and I've got 8 nieces and nephews that I don't see very often.
Are they? Can they come and visit? And
So for families that live a long way away, they come like 2 weekends a year.
Okay.
For families that are close, like for a day trip, they come for like an afternoon a month. But so we do see our family some.
That's great.
I talk to my family once every 6 weeks, and then I see them twice a year.
That's great.
Which even that, again, from this side, it sounds completely normal. It's not great, I would love to see my family more, but it's life at this point,
there are a lot of
normal,
folks who live the normal life that see their family that often or sometimes less.
Yeah.
So that's
which is
it's a big country.
It is a big country, and and anyway, so
and just like some sort of like basic day to day, do you carry money? Do you have an ID? Is there a need for any of that?
So we have ID. It's somewhat hard to come by sometimes because when you're going to get a driver's license, you have to have proof of residency. But I don't pay bills and I don't get paid.
Right. So, you don't have that electric bill that you're supposed to show.
Yep.
That
I don't have a bank account here. I don't have an electric bill. I don't really get that much mail, from official entities anyway. So it's tough. But yes, we have IDs. Definitely, we keep our passport valid. Unfortunately, nuns do travel more than we'd sometimes like for different meetings. I mentioned we have an association of monasteries in the country, so we might go to a different monastery for a short time.
Oh, really?
For meetings, or we interact with them, kind of in the wider Dominican family.
Now, is this more exclusive to your role as an extern external, or is this also the cloistered sisters would travel as well?
So they travel some, yes.
Okay,
They,
okay.
They said, maybe once a year they'll go to
Okay.
a meeting. The ones that have a role, novice mistress, prioress, that sort of
I
thing.
see. Okay.
As extern, I do go out quite frequently. I've not flown since I entered, which is very strange for me because I
Wow.
was flying probably once a month beforehand, going to see family or visiting
Right.
communities. So I haven't flown in 3 years. It's crazy, but I do drive around. I drive sisters to appointments. I go grocery shopping. That
I
sort
see.
Of thing.
Okay.
So I need my driver's license for that. I don't have any money myself. I don't have a credit card or anything. I think I have about $40 in my wallet because I'm an extern, and so I've got some cash if I get strapped.
Right.
When I go grocery shopping, I take the official money person's credit card.
Okay,
I
I see.
remember to grab that
Right.
every time.
Right.
So yeah, it's very different. We don't have cell phones. A few sisters have cell phones because of their office, but it's not their personal phone.
Again,
So-
not missing anything. Flying, not missing anything.
Yeah.
I mean, it's the destination. I mean, the journey is
Exactly.
flying. Airports are airports, but
Yep. Yeah, we have the great privilege of not needing a cell phone and not
really
even
is.
I have an email address that you get when we make profession now. You get an email address. I check it once a week.
Okay.
And the kind of the idea is maybe if you're novice mistress, you might check it more to make sure there's not young women inquiring, or my family isn't contacting me for some important thing.
Okay.
But yeah, the kind of idea is like, I'm in a monastery. If they expect a response today, that's just not going to happen.
No,
I
yeah.
have the privilege of stepping back.
It really
and
is.
stepping
It
away.
really is. I mean, in some respects, again, it may seem incredibly, restrictive and constricting, but again, it's just this freedom of discipline. And, sometimes there's that tyranny of choice, and, you go to a grocery store and there are 18 different flavors of jam, and you're like, I just want strawberry,
Yeah.
and it is, there's that, you don't have to think in that way. And there is that freedom to think towards.
Yeah, it's a huge freedom. I get up and I put on the exact same clothes every single day of my life. This is what I'm going to wear.
Right.
We eat in community life. We eat what is served. Like one sister prepares a meal, puts it on the table. Everyone lines up and takes it.
Right.
You don't have to decide that. So it's tremendous freedom. And you don't have to decide when you're waking up or when you're going to sleep.
And talk about diet. Is there any sort of dietary restriction or fasting?
So we, in our community, don't have any regular food restriction. We eat meat, and but everything we eat, or all the meals, kind of are on the tier for liturgically. So even everything in our life, schedule-wise, is determined by the liturgy. So again, we pray 7 times a day, but even the liturgical cycle. So we celebrate different saints on particular days, or different, Christmas, Easter, that sort of thing. So the bigger the feast, the bigger the meal. Essentially, it's directly connected.
Okay.
So we have ice cream on feast days, and we have cookies on certain memorials. Like if we're celebrating a Dominican saint that day, we'll have cookies. During the fasting seasons, we're fasting.
Okay.
I'll say.
And what is the fasting season?
So Lent is the big one, the main one. And then also Advent we have as a fasting season with different ideas. Lent is the desert and penitential. Advent is waiting. But interacting with the world here around Christmas time is just it really reminds you that you have stepped out of the world when you enter a monastery, because in the world, Christmas ends on Christmas Day, but in the monastery, Christmas starts on Christmas Day.
Right.
So we, fast up until Christmas throughout all of Advent.
Okay.
And actually wait for the big excitement that comes on Christmas. It's a very different thing, but it's far more exciting this way.
Right. I think so.
When you actually wait for things to come. So yeah, fasting, we eat less. We do abstain from different foods
Okay.
during those days. And then, again, the whole liturgical cycle. So every Friday, we fast and abstain as well, recalling, Jesus' sacrifice on the cross.
And how long are you fasting for on a Friday?
So fasting for us is not for our community is not, no eating. It's like one main meal and then 2 smaller meals to sustain your strength.
Okay.
I guess. So we abstain from meat every Friday and then eat less as well. But on a regular basis, we don't generally, like our daily fast, I suppose, is we don't eat between meals. So we don't snack throughout the day like most people do.
Well, that's good.
You eat at breakfast and dinner and supper, and that is it.
Right.
So.
And I mean, you talked about the joy, and you always hear of nuns living long lives, and I think that it's the calling. I mean, there's so much apart, but it's also the routine, the abstention, and they've talked about the deliberate fasting of like having under the calories that you need is better for longer life. And I mean, I guess there's just so much about your livelihoods that engender a very long and happy life.
Yes, which you're absolutely right. We're living a very particular way that just so happens to result in a healthy life, which isn't a coincidence. I want to point out that we are living a life that has been structured by God, and with God as creator, it's not a coincidence that a life completely built around, his ideas for how humans should live creates a healthy human. That is kind of the whole idea, I guess, behind virtue. And God's got the plan, and we have to and we can follow it and be healthy in that way. Yeah. So, growing in the virtue of not eating too much, and growing in the virtue of exercising, as you ought, or being active every day, and again, to go back to like the healthy community life, human interaction, and hanging out with people that and having good conversation. And it's also, we embrace poverty in the way of that we live, and so we're not consuming as much, even things or in addition to food. It's
so there aren't Amazon packages being delivered every day to the door.
Well, there are, but that's because we don't go out to go shopping very often.
True, fair enough.
So,
yes.
So our toilet paper shows up in the Amazon package at the door.
I would call that a necessity.
Yes, necessities show up at our door because we would rather do that than go get it. But yeah, it's a healthy life. Yeah, which is shocking to a lot of people. I think that because we are so constrained, and but it's a very complete life here. Yeah. We have everything I need.
Yeah.
I've got food. I've got like I said, I've got good family, good community, and it's everything I need. It's everything I was made to need.
Wow.
One of a chaplain, a quote I remember from one of his homilies before was like, God has brought you to a place that the only thing you need is Him, which is absolutely right.
This really sums it up.
I have everything that I need, humanly speaking, here, and I have everything available to me that I need supernaturally. But I have to go get it. Have the courage, have the self-control to not overindulge on cookies, or distract myself during prayer time. We're still human here. There's like you still have to you have to do the thing. You have to.
Right.
You gotta embrace the great gift that I've been given.
So, what advice would you give for anybody considering the contemplative life?
Man, it's just so cliche to say, like, just go for it.
Well,
but that's what comes to mind, because it is because there's lots of time to decide whether it's for you or not.
Yeah.
But also, if you're feeling the tug towards the monastery, it's not a natural tug. I mean, as I've said so many times, this life is kind of crazy, like it's not the sort of thing that people are just going to wake up one day and be like, you know what, I'm going to go live and move into a monastery for the rest of my life. If you're feeling the tug, there's probably something there. And, again, our life is ordered around God and the faith in that. And so to trust him, and that was one of the kind of the ledge I had to get over, I guess, in my own discernment was, God actually has my best interest in mind here. What he wants of me is actually going to make me happy.
Wow.
And that is, you can't always see that until you actually take the step. The first step is hard, but the trust of just throwing your life into the mystery, I suppose. Okay, let's give this a shot. You can't see how fantastic it is until you actually take that step. So, yeah, and if it doesn't work out, then go back and find what does work.
Right.
And that's it's not like after your first contact, you're stuck for life.
True.
It's a long process.
Yeah. As it should be.
Yeah.
As it should be. Well, maybe you could close us out with a prayer for our listeners.
Sure.
That'd be great.
Happy to do it. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. Come, Holy Spirit. I would thank you for this conversation we were able to have this afternoon. I ask you to be in the lives of all who listen. Reveal to them your goodness. Reveal to them your love. Help them to walk the path that you would like them to live, and find the joy that you want in their life. And thank you for your love and for all that you have given us. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, sister. That was beautiful. Thank you.